What's going on, gang? This is the X-Teen Featurette channel. I'm Chris, and I'm in front of the old abandoned Kino Lorber rack again, because I have some more Kino Lorber flicks to talk about. They sent to me for review the Film Noir Volume 6 box set, The Dark Side of Cinema Volume 6. So this, I know that I said that I wanted to do like maybe an overview of all of the volumes since I own them all. I talked about 5 in depth and it was pretty amazing. I think that Volume 6 impressed me even more than Volume 5. So we have some late 40s, early 50s flicks in this. We have 1947's Singapore. We have 1949's Johnny Stool Pigeon and 1951's The Raging Tide. Let's just go in order of how they appear in the box set. So let's start with 1947's Singapore, starring Fred MacMurray and Ava Gardner, who is absolutely gorgeous, by the way. She's just a beauty. So each one of these films has its own audio commentary, and they all do have subtitles, so it's nice to have that. And the commentaries were all, I listened to the one on Johnny Stool Pigeon in depth. I listened to the others just kind of jumping around to see what it sounded like. They were all very good, but I'll talk about that more later. Singapore is basically an amnesia flick. We have Fred MacMurray, who is playing Matt, and he's dealing in, he's kind of caught up in some shady, like illegal smuggling of pearls. And he is like falling in love with this woman named Linda Graham. They had met in Singapore 9 days ago and they're about to get married. And they're in this hotel that's very beautiful. There's a lot of Americans there. It seems like a touristy area. But, you know, he's not like a tourist. Like he's treated like a local because he's in business there. And, you know, he kind of shows her around, and it's a very whirlwind romance. You know, obviously they're trying to rush a marriage after 9 days of knowing each other, so must be something going on there. The hotel overlooks this bay, and we see the warships coming in over the horizon, and they basically get split up during this bombing in Singapore. So Ava Gardner plays a character called Linda Graham. So he gives her this beautiful string of pearls because that's kind of his thing. And whenever he can't find her after the bombing, he just assumes that she's dead. So he's kind of rushed out. He owns a ship and he takes a bunch of Americans with him because they're trying to escape the war. And it kind of fast forwards to 5 years in the future when he's coming back to Singapore, not really wanting to because he doesn't want to relive the heartbreak of losing Linda, but he wants to get back to the hotel to find these pearls that he hid in a ceiling fan. So there's customs agents that are kind of grilling him, and there's some jewel merchants in Singapore that are looking to buy these pearls because they're so hard to come by after the war. Matt is looking to make a cool little fortune off of these pearls, so he is intent on finding them. He gets mixed up with some shady characters because merchants that are, you know, dealing in such things are not always on the up and up. So we end up in some kind of shady situations and environments. In the process of his business, he sees Linda at a dance, and she is dancing with another person and doesn't recognize him whatsoever. So we learn that she got knocked out in the aftermath of the war and the bombings, and she and her now husband fell in love in the hospital, and she cannot recall her life whatsoever prior to the bombing. Once all this happens, he's now intent on both finding the pearls and reminding Linda who she is so that she remembers and falls in love with him again and leaves her husband, and he has the love of his life back who he knew for 9 days. It was, I mean, I'm sure stranger things have happened, right? I'm a big fan of location and set design, and this movie had some really interesting sets. So I really liked the clubs that they were in and the bar that he would talk to Linda in. And I also really loved the hotel in general, like the hotel room, the way that they were, the way that it was designed, the way that the window framed the bay and everything. It was just really cool looking. Another thing that was cool is that it had a comedic side. There was a couple American tourist characters who were just kind of like bumbling idiots. And they were just really fun. They always like popped up and said what they were doing for the day. And it kind of reminded me of like Fred and Ethel and I Love Lucy, just the way that they interacted with each other. But they were a fun little comedic relief to the movie. So that is Singapore, a really solid film noir romance / amnesia flick, clocking in at 79 minutes. Very, very good. Next, we have Johnny Stool Pigeon. This, I was most excited out of all the movies in this box set to see because a number of reasons. Firstly, because William Castle directed this, and I'm always down to watch a William Castle flick. Secondly, because Tony Curtis has a role in this, and I love him in film noir. I think that he is incredible. His role in this was really interesting, and I'll talk about that. Thirdly, because this has the audio commentary by professor and film scholar Jason A. Ney, and he had reached out to me because I mentioned his commentary on one of my other videos. I think it was the Volume 5 video, and I mentioned that his commentary was really solid and suggested that everybody listen to it. So I made a point to listen to that since I'm a fan of his commentaries, and it was phenomenal. Again, you should listen to the commentary. All of them have really great information, but you know, he just presents it really organized and clearly, and there's a lot of really good information in there. So, you know, if you're a nerd and you want to learn more stuff about these movies that you're watching, definitely listen to the commentaries. I really appreciate that Kino Lorber adds commentaries to these flicks. I feel like it makes it more of like a learning experience, you know. We're watching these and learning film history, so it's really cool. And the synopsis on the back of this sounded really great to me. So I was really stoked to watch it, and it lived up to my expectations, quite honestly. It was very good, even though it ended up not being my favorite on this set. This is so amazing, and I highly suggest this movie. Johnny Stool Pigeon, what could it be about? It's about a stool pigeon, you know, stool pigeon and dirty, rotten coppers. How can you not want to watch a movie about that? I don't usually read the back of cases because you can read it yourself. I'll put in a clip. But this one is so good, I just have to read it word for word. They crack the back of the world's blackest racket. A cop, a dame, a killer. Like, oh man, like that just draws me in. Cult filmmaker William Castle, the macabre mastermind behind House on Haunted Hill, The Tingler, 13 Ghosts, and Let's Kill Uncle, delivers a different kind of shadowy suspense with Johnny Stool Pigeon. This is really cool. It took place in San Francisco, so it had a lot of the San Francisco architecture and, you know, just like landmark images in the movie, which is always beautiful to see, especially on this new 2K master. And it's about a narcotics ring. So it's about these cops. The cops are trying to bust this narcotics ring and all these like smugglers. So Johnny Evans is in prison, and his former, I guess, friend growing up is now a cop. What's his name? George. So he makes a deal with George. You know, George says that he can help him. You know, the scene where he goes to Johnny in prison and asks him for help was just absolutely amazing. The way that, and the commentary was great in the scene too, just the way that Johnny approaches him and the way that he tosses him this pack of cigarettes, and their whole exchange was just, the acting was phenomenal, and it just told you so much about their character, and you could just get a feel of their history together through this one little interaction. It was so simple, but just wow, it was very, very impactful, and the whole movie was filled with scenes like that. Shelley Winters plays a dame that's involved in the narcotics ring, and she's kind of like tagging along with George and Johnny, and you just get the feeling that they're trying to help her out. She's just like, she wants a better life. They end up at this dude ranch, I think in Arizona. The story they come up with is that Johnny is out of prison. The prison he was in, by the way, was Alcatraz. It wasn't actually filmed within Alcatraz, but there is some outside photography of it, which is always cool to see. And so Johnny's out of prison, and he creates like a character for George to play. So he's kind of going undercover, if you will, and acting like he is trying to buy some stuff from people so they can get information, and Johnny's kind of helping him get into this, underground scene and not look like such a dirty, rotten copper. So what sticks out the most to me, their relationships really grow. At first, they're kind of wary of each other. As they travel, they go down to Arizona or wherever the dude ranch is. Their relationship evolves, and it's really cool to see that. I can't stress enough, the acting in this movie was phenomenal, and the story was just great. Tony Curtis in this plays a mute killer. He is working for the bad guys, and he just witnesses a lot of stuff. It's so interesting anytime you have a character that's mute, because, it just signifies something, and then it's like he has to express himself in different ways. So that was really cool. For being one of his earliest roles, it was very impressive. And that is all I'll say about Johnny Stool Pigeon. I absolutely loved it. Honestly, it's probably a very good film noir to start out with if you're not that familiar with the genre. I mean, that's just my opinion, but it's got a very nice sampling of everything that you will get in film noir, and it's very enjoyable. It's a very solid story, so I think that anybody could enjoy it. Then finally, The Raging Tide, another Shelley Winters flick. This was my favorite on the set, for sure. I was blown away by how much I enjoyed this. So in this we have Shelley Winters, Richard Conte, Stephen McNally, Charles Bickford, Alex Nichol, and John McIntyre. I feel like I hadn't seen a few of them in movies before. There were some that I had seen before, but I think that a lot of these actors were new for me, but I absolutely loved them. This is the longest movie, clocking in at 93 minutes. Johnny Stool Pigeon was 76, but this is the longest, and it kind of feels, even though it's only like an hour and a half, it kind of feels more epic because of the tone of the story. Bruno, who's played by Richard Conte, is a gangster. He kills a man in the very beginning of this movie. It opens with a murder, and it's in San Francisco. So they say that, there's only 3 ways in and out of the city. So they lock down the city. Bruno knows they're locking down the city. He's trying to get to his girl, Shelley Winters' house. She plays a character called Connie. He knows that if he can get there, he will have an alibi. He's like, if I can get there in time, I can get there really fast. It'll be like I've been here, and it'll be fine. They won't think it's me. So he runs into a fisherman on the way there. So, somebody witnessed him. They can place him there. A little iffy. She didn't answer her door. She's not answering, so he panics. He goes to the dock, and he's just hiding. The cops are like right on his tail. And then he climbs onto a fishing boat and hides. So he sees a way out. He knows that the boat is leaving in the morning, and it does. The people eventually find him. There's a father and son fisherman. Hamill is the father, and Carl is the son. So Carl's played by Alex Nichol, and Hamill is played by Charles Bickford. Hamill was my favorite character in this by far. I absolutely loved him. He had an accent that I couldn't place. He kept talking about the old country. I couldn't tell if he was supposed to be from some European country or Russia. I wasn't really sure. But we learned that his wife had died, so it's just him and Carl. He's a fisherman. He just fishes. He's trying to, go out there and earn his living. And whenever they find this stowaway on their boat, his, Bruno's story is, oh, I had one too many and I passed out, and, I'm a salesman, and I ended up here. And they're like, well, we're going to be out to sea for 3 days. And he's like, oh, that's okay, I can help. And Bruno basically, over the course of this expedition, he grows very fond of Hamill's character. Hamill's just a very genuine guy, and he does not ask Bruno who he is, about his past, where he came from. He just takes him at face value. Carl is a little more suspicious, and Carl, we learn, has had problems with the law. So, Bruno's kind of there, and he kind of gets the feeling that Carl is not on the up and up, so he tries to take advantage of Carl and hires him to take care of his dealings on the land whenever they come to shore and sell their fish. Bruno does not leave the boat. He tells Hamill that he likes fishing, he just wants to stay with them, and he's like, hey, whatever, it's fine by me. So he has Carl doing his deeds for him. Carl visits Connie and corresponds to her. He gets a little fresh with her. He kind of gets a little handsy with her at one point, and she is, she can hold her own. She's going to school. She doesn't realize that Bruno is, a bad dude. She thinks that that's all in his past. And there is a cop, Homicide Lieutenant Kelsey. He's played by Stephen McNally. He's always visiting Connie because he knows that that's Bruno's girl. And then he eventually meets Carl. So there's all these characters. We have Bruno is with Connie and he's trying to help her. He's giving her money, telling her to go to school and stay in school, and encouraging her to get her life together. We have Lieutenant Kelsey that's trying to get to the bottom of this homicide. We have Hamill and Carl, who, Hamill just wants to do his fishing and he wants to get his boy out of trouble. Meanwhile, Carl thinks that blue-collar work and working with your hands is a joke. He thinks it's not respectable. And at one point, he really disrespects his father. And at one point, Bruno and him get into an altercation. They have a fist fight down on the docks because Bruno takes such a liking to Hamill. I honestly cried during this movie because Hamill reminded me so much of my grandfather, just like a no-nonsense, hardworking person who has a good heart, but just doesn't really show it, and just puts all of their effort into their work. And the way he talked and the way he talked about his son, like, you could just tell that he loved him and that he valued him, and it was so sad. Like, there wasn't really anything sad between them in this movie, but just the way that he wanted a good relationship with his son and he couldn't have that. There were also other characters in this. There were a bunch of fishermen or former fishermen just hanging out drinking by the docks all day. They were a source of information for Lieutenant Kelsey. There was one in particular that was pretty pivotal to the story, and he was interesting too. So really great characters in this movie. There were a lot of scenes that took place on the ocean where the boat was just being tossed around or whatever. There were some in Connie's apartment. There were some in this restaurant that she and Carl frequented. There were the scenes in the city itself, in the streets. So there was a lot of really interesting scenery in this. I enjoyed that. And the characters in this were just phenomenal. They were all really dynamic, but the way that they just kind of rolled up together and their stories kind of intertwined was very interesting. And I just absolutely loved that movie. Out of all of the movies on the dark side of cinema sets that Kino Lorber has released so far, Raging Tide is probably one of my favorites. Johnny Stool Pigeon also, but Raging Tide is probably my favorite. That is my review of Volume 6. So if you are going to buy one of these Dark Side of Cinema collections from Kino Lorber, this has now moved up to number 1 as far as my my recommendation. So if you're going to check out one of these sets, this is a very good one to start with. Very solid movies, all of them. So again, many thanks to Kino Lorber for sending this to me for review. Definitely check it out. If you have this or if you have seen any of these movies, let me know what you think. So here's something exciting. If you saw my last pickup video, you know that I got 2 of the Volume 7 sets. Here's the other one. And I reached out to Kino Lorber because I wanted to do the right thing and said, hey, you sent me 2 of these, you need me to return one. And they were like, oh no, that's cool. Do a giveaway on your channel. So I'm going to do a giveaway for this. I have not seen any of these movies yet, but we have The Boss, Chicago Confidential, and You Have Nothing to Fear But The Fear Makers. So those are really interesting titles from the mid to late 50s. So I know it's going to be a different feel from this one for sure, but I'm looking very much forward to it. So if you have made it this far in this video and you are interested in a chance at winning the Volume 7 set, leave me a comment below with the word Fear Makers in it, all one word, Fear Makers. So any comment that has the word Fear Makers, all one word, will be entered into the chance to win this. Couple caveats. Be a subscriber of this channel. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do it. What are you waiting for? And finally, it's only open to the United States and Puerto Rico because I don't want to pay for international shipping. So apologies to my international friends, but you know, that's how it be with shipping. So, and it's region A locked anyway. So there you have it. Very generous of Kino Lorber. I am posting this on the 19th of August. I will post the winners again in a week. So you have 1 week to enter. On the 26th, I believe it's Friday the 26th, I will post the winner. So there you have it. If you made it this far and you're interested in this, there you go. Good luck. Many thanks again to Kino Lorber for sending Volume 6 and Volume 7. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Thanks to you for watching, and I will see you next time, and someone's gonna win this. Bye, gang.